Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what I should do at this point. I have now tried to publish the same exact video with minor edits due to YouTube's terms and service 3 different times. The first time I tried to publish this video, YouTube flagged it for hateful content. Now, you guys being familiar with my channel know for a fact that I don't even call people names on this channel, let alone make hateful content targeting marginalized groups. But a human YouTube reviewer looked at my video and decided that it promoted hateful content. So I decided to relax, take it back into editing, look for anything that could have been misinterpreted as an insult, and edit that out of the video. So I did that, changed the thumbnail, re-upload the video with the tweaks. Then, YouTube flags that video for a completely different reason. They say I showed serious bodily injury, which I did not show. It's just not present in that video. I don't show people getting seriously hurt on my channel. I showed some minor physical contact that had to do with a chokehold that was put on a resident of Chaz by other residents of Chaz. The video was about the Seattle Autonomous Zone, so I was making a video mocking them for betraying all of their principles at the Seattle Autonomous Zone. So then, I take it into editing again, I decide, hey, maybe they interpreted that as serious bodily injury, so I blur that out completely. So then, I add a little message in the beginning of the video to explain what happened the previous 2 times with the video. And I explain that YouTube has no idea what they're classifying as serious bodily injury or hateful content against marginalized groups. So I re-upload after 2 separate tries of removing anything objectionable. It gets demonetized, I request a review like I always do, and it just came back as confirmed not advertiser friendly. And what was the reason that it got confirmed not advertiser friendly? For hateful content, for violence, and for nudity. Specifically, blurred out nudity in my video. There was no nudity at all ever in my video. What they classified as blurred out nudity was the blurred out violence in order to remove YouTube's objection of showing violence. So now I have this video that I have to re-edit again for the 4th time that has been ready to roll since June 16th of this year, that has already been listed, 1 copy of it for my members, 1 copy of it for my patrons, 1 copy of it for my Subscribestar people, because YouTube refuses to have any standards for who is a human reviewer for their content. This is a joking video. It's not serious at all. It's about Chaz, the autonomous zone in Seattle. There is nothing objectionable about it. There should be no reason that YouTube keeps flagging it. I didn't do anything wrong, and for the 4th time, I have to go back into editing and fix this video. So I'm going to put up a version of this video. I will censor absolutely everything in this video. And when you see it, I want you to know that I didn't choose to censor absolutely everything in this video. YouTube decided that in order for me to be able to publish this video without a bunch of restrictions on it, that I had to over-censor this video despite the fact that other content creators covering this show uncensored versions of the footage that I show and have it fully monetized. There are no standards on this platform. I did not do anything wrong, and I cannot believe I'm dealing with this. It's absurd. I've never had this much trouble clearing the monetization thing. I always follow the rules of YouTube as listed, and if I make a mistake and it gets flagged and I know for a fact there was nothing wrong with the video, I take it back into editing and adjust it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported me on Patreon, Subscribestar, with the one-time donations on Venmo and PayPal, because that's the only thing that's getting me through these kind of moments on this platform, because I have no idea how to not get demonetized by YouTube's system right now, because YouTube's system absolutely makes no sense whatsoever, and the human reviewers can't even be consistent on their explanations for what's wrong with my video. What is up, guys? Sean here, and do you guys remember when I used to open every single video by saying, and today we're gonna talk about this? Now, the reason I bring that up is because I want to be more comforting as a YouTube channel. I want you to feel comforted when you watch these videos. A lot of my videos, especially the past 3, have been a little bit too doom and gloom, and honestly, I take responsibility for that.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
Celebrities are the worst thing that happened to our society. But seriously, I do want to take some responsibility for boosting the temperature in the United States of America. And it's not like I did this without good reason. Right now, we are in a chaotic moment in our country. Right now, there is open lawlessness happening, and a large portion of the population and almost all of the media is pretending it's not happening. Insane policies are being advocated for and are growing in popularity in this country, like abolishing the police, because police departments need to be obliterated because one guy in Minneapolis kneeled on the neck of another guy in Minneapolis, and therefore we all don't need police anymore, especially people in high crime areas. But in this video, we're going to be going in a little bit of a different direction. Today, we're going to talk about not just a crazy leftist protest, but a crazy leftist new country. See what I did there, by the way? I did the today we're going to talk about thing. Very reassuring. It's making you feel like the old times on this channel, before we had to worry about all that crazy stuff with the virus, or whatever we used to call it. That's not even an issue anymore, because as our public health experts have already told us, the racism is actually the real virus. And don't worry about the virus anymore, unless you're Donald Trump and you're planning on doing a political rally that will transmit the virus because your politics in that political rally are not sufficiently aligned with the woke, and therefore they don't get the immunity idol that protects you from the virus. But enough about that. Set that aside. Let's talk about this new country who has reported, by the way, almost no virus transmissions, and that is the nation of Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or as it's known now, the Capitol Hill Occupied Property or something, CHOP. I don't know. I'll put it up on screen. We don't have to be accurate. It's not a big deal. This nation is a disaster. So the nation of Chaz, or CHOP as it's known now, and by the way, the P in CHOP stands for protest, not for property. Any idiot who says it's property, totally wrong. That's why I said protest, and I totally didn't look it up after saying property earlier in the video. Don't even go back to that part of the video. Is a new nation that is built on politics, and it's also a breakaway nation. So it's a democratic, racially political secession movement, which has always worked out really well in the history of the United States of America, and it started its roots in Seattle. And in fact, immediately upon the establishment of this new nation, the Seattle PD actually yielded territory to them. So their secession movement has so far gone off completely without a hitch, as long as you don't count anything that has gone about with this new nation, like the fact that they have no idea how to farm whatsoever. You see, this is a photo of the Chaz farm. Now, you might look at this farm and think, you know, I don't think that's going to feed that many people, even if this farm is fully developed. You can't just dig up some of the grass in a park in Seattle and expect to grow crops from it. Obviously, you need way more in order to have a successful farm, and you need to plant a lot more things in order for that farm to feed a lot more people. And you'd be wrong, because what they actually did in the great nation of Chaz, or CHOP, is far stupider than you can even imagine. They didn't even bother to dig up some of the grass. They just laid down some cardboard, put some topsoil on top of the cardboard, and then put potted plants on top of the topsoil that is on top of the cardboard. They didn't even take out the potted plants from their pots. And yet they suspect that in the future, this will be a source of nutrition for all of the residents of the nation of CHOP or Chaz, whatever the hell you want to call this. But then they realize, like all great communist authoritarian regimes, that a famine was on the rise. And when a famine's on the rise in a communist nation, the only thing that you can do is start rationing resources. However, unlike other communist nations that ration resources for the political party, Chaz decided to go in a little bit of an apartheid direction, and they deemed that this farm was only going to feed minorities in the nation of Chaz. So we have a nation with a non-functioning farm that is on occupied territory within our nation, and they're already doing And that's not the only instance of there was also a report that they wanted to institute a form of reparations. And by report of this, I mean they literally said it. Some guy got up on stage and demanded that people who were give people $10.
I want you to find by the time you leave this autonomous zone, I want you to give $10 to one African American person from this autonomous zone. And if you find that's difficult, if you find it's hard for you to give $10 to people of color, to black people especially, you have to think really critically about in the future, are you going to actually give up power and land and capital when you have it? If you have a hard time giving up $10, you got to think about, are you really down with this struggle? Are you really down with the movement?
Now you might be asking yourself, why in the world is this great autonomous nation using the currency of the American system? I mean, there's literally printed on all the currency that they're passing around, and the currency that they expect to be passed to the newly liberated black citizens of Chad. And I'm not exactly sure, maybe in the future when their economy starts to develop, they will develop their own currency, but for now, they're using the bucks in order to fight racism, and honestly, I think there's a powerful message in there. I don't know what the message is, but I just feel like it's ultra powerful. Now, before you book your ticket to the great nation of Chaz, or CHOP, or Occupied 2.0, except significantly stupider, there are some travel advisories that you need to look out for depending on who you talk to. And by depending on who you talk to, I mean these are legitimate things that are going on there, but there are people who are actively denying and lying about them, such as CNN host, or journalist, if you can call him that, Oliver Darcy, who claims that it's a right-wing conspiracy theory, a Fox News conspiracy theory, that there's an armed takeover of 6 city blocks in Seattle. Now, he claims this despite the fact that I'm putting a video on screen right now of people holding guns in the nation of Chaz, and in fact, can cut the audio in of this video so you can listen to the warlord of Chaz give advice on what to do if you find yourself in a firefight, presumably with the police.
Get into a shootout and you're trying to take cover, make sure you get to the rear wheel of the car, get where the tires are at. Yeah. And sometimes you center, but that's not as, you know...
Engine blocking tires.
This is true. It might be misinformation, it might be lies. That's why I pointed out earlier. So we're just being ready. We're not doing anything illegal.
They want to know why the guns tonight.
Just the energy that's out right now. And there's possible threats or whatever. So we're just exercising our rights.
But it's still a conspiracy theory to the majority of the mainstream media and the politicians in Seattle and in Washington state.
We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that.
You see, it's just like a normal block party, perfectly in line with the traditions of the city of Seattle. It's not an armed takeover where people are defacing buildings and have forced the police department to vacate one of their stations. It's just a normal block party, not to be confused with a normal block party that you will presumably get arrested for or ticketed for doing while there's a quarantine, but also like a normal block party. Now, of course, like any block party, there are needs in order to keep this going, and I know what you're thinking. Prior to having a block party, people typically go out and get supplies first, but this was more of an unplanned armed takeover block party, so they didn't really have everything they needed in order to hold this territory for a block party. So here are their list of demands. They need cigarettes, they need lighters, obviously gotta light the cigarettes, they need ice, the good kind, and before you start thinking that this is a reference to immigrations and custom enforcement, it is not. I've talked to the people in Chaz, and they don't want square ice, they want crushed ice. That's the good kind. Everybody should have crushed ice because it's just so much better looking in your glass. They also need sunglasses, they need zip ties to, hold prisoners of war. Totally normal stuff for a block party. You guys should not be concerned in any way, shape, or form by the fact that this autonomous zone, this new nation, is not quite that autonomous and seems to be very dependent on outside support in order to, maintain their occupation, which is just like a normal block party. Now, the other thing that they appear to need in lower IQ Occupy is better law enforcement training, because right now, whoever has the most might is the most right in the great nation of Chaz or Chop or whatever the hell they're calling it by the time that this video comes out. And they also need some training and discipline, because sometimes these overzealous community-style police, these social workers that are intervening in these tense situations, tend to use, probably because they have internalized oppression, the tools of the oppressors. Yes, you are watching this video correctly. In order to get this guy's speaker out of his hand, this fine gentleman, this fine freedom fighter, anti-law enforcement activist, decided to put this guy in a chokehold for the crime of preaching religion and playing something on the speaker. Really rigid there, a lot of ordinances, and the idea that somebody can just be living their lives and be choked out in the streets by some agitated armed thug, it's something that I think we should all be against, even in the great nation of Chaz. I mean, if the police did this to a minority, even though they were resisting arrest, this would be a national news story in our nation. So when their police use these thuggish tactics against one of their own and contradict their great nation's founding ideals, I think that we should get up on our moral high horse and lecture them for the bad things that they did. There's also a number of thefts that are going on in this nation, which makes a lot of sense because this nation is founded on the idea that private property does not exist. I mean, just look at the way that they treat the people's private property that they basically appropriated in order to form this nation.
I just had my keys broken, stolen, got jumped, had my phone stolen, and these let it all happen.
But while I sit here and mock Chaz from my ivory tower in this very fancy, high-end studio, the truth is, I'm just afraid of Chaz, because honestly, this is a nation that shows us what real democracy actually looks like. Not this constitutional republic with individual rights and checks and balances that we have in the States, but true democracy, a true representative government where the person with the most guns runs the entire country and enforces arbitrary police actions against journalists and other people who seek to be citizens of this nation. That's what we should all be striving towards. Not courts and all that legislation nonsense. Because Raz, or Razzie as I like to call him because me and him go way back, was chosen by the divine society that we live in to run this small independent nation. He has a nearly perfect Airbnb host score. If that doesn't qualify you to be the king of a country, I don't know what else does. But if you needed more proof that Razzmatazz, which is also a nickname that I call him, because again, we are really close friends, was the right person to rule this nation with an iron fist, he also has a blue checkmark on Twitter. That's right, the random warlord who is handing out guns in the middle of downtown Seattle has a blue checkmark, because on Twitter, no matter how crazy far left you are, as long as your name has some vague association with newspapers, even if you're the subject of them as you're committing crimes, apparently you can get verified. But hey, what do I know? My opinion doesn't matter in this scenario. I'm a cisgender. But maybe somebody out there in the comments, or willing to leave a comment, has an opinion that matters more. Maybe you guys check the appropriate demographic boxes in order to leave a valid comment under this video. And if that's the case, I invite you to this safe space to comment your thoughts on this great nation in the comments down below. And if you are a oppressor and you want to leave a comment, you can too, but just know that you doing that takes up space of a more marginalized voice. And we're all about uplifting marginalized voices, even if it means reinstituting some form of segregation, because that's the progressive position, and this channel is going in a progressive direction. I just feel it right here, and right here, but also right here, and one other place. Now, I just want to say thank you to all the people who joined up on Patreon, Subscribestar, and via the YouTube join button, and in the donation links for Venmo and PayPal. I really appreciate all the support I've gotten lately. You guys know the drill with the liking, sharing, subscribing, you know, all that nonsense. I don't need to go over it again. This has been me talking about the thing that's vaguely in the title and or thumbnail of this video. Till next time.